Hey viewers and viewers, my name is John Redstratus. Welcome back to So You're Being Hunted. This is episode 317. Phil, how are you doing over there on Skype? He's joining me
Hello.
today.
So I'm on three. We're on 317, and the last time I joined you was 313, but we did the ideal dinner party one,
Indeed, yeah.
which is an intriguing one. Yeah, we both had a go at our dinner guests and who we'd want to invite and why.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're just continuing on, of course, with the Literature Hunt Challenge over here. Now, I have been doing a little bit of work off camera, so you see I've actually got some books in my inventory and a letter already, because I was just basically... Because the problem is, what I was doing off camera was, I was looking at the So You're Being Hunted wiki just to see how many books there actually are in the game, and I wasn't far off getting all
5,274.
Yeah.
So there's the right total.
Yeah. So basically I got these ones, which are all ones that I haven't read. And apparently there is only one more book that I have yet to find, according to my list. There's still quite a few letters that I haven't found, so I'll probably have to set up another map for those to try and find them. But yeah, so, I was thinking in this one we'll just sort of continue on beating up scarecrows until eventually we get the book in question. So the book that is outstanding, apparently the name, well, or rather its title, is... something like the Terrible Forest or something like that.
Terrible Forest. You have come across that before, because in previous, well, no, before you did the Literature Hunt, you have.
Yeah.
I've seen that book before. Yeah.
Indeed, I probably have, but obviously we're going to try and find it in this. So it's just a matter of constantly trying to kill scarecrows until eventually we get the one that we're looking for. Yeah. But in the meantime, I thought, maybe we could read these ones, which I've managed to pick up off camera.
Okay.
Because we might as well. So this one here, this is letter 4, which I haven't had previously. So this one says, "Dearest A, I'm afraid my man never returned from the woods. In fact, no one who has left Paulgrove Manor has reappeared, and I now find myself quite alone. Even the cook seems to have vanished, and it's only by virtue of these messenger birds that I'm able to keep in contact with you in London. I fear something fell is afoot in the island. I went for a walk this morning and didn't see any of the local poor people doing their usual frolicking or collecting of things from the ground. Perhaps something has happened to them too. I am running out of pipe tobacco, and the boiler is an arcane mystery to me. Parsons." So that's letter 4.
Yeah, the boiler is an arcane mystery to me as well.
It's an arcane mystery to everyone except plumbers, apparently. So yes. Okay. Right.
Once you've read these books, I actually do have a topic, which will be an interesting topic for today's So You've Been Hunted. Yeah.
In that case, let's get these out of the way, and then we'll hear what Phil has to say. So let's have a look at these books that I found. So this one is Fortunate Jack. Now, initially, I kind of was thinking, is this similar to the Jack the Robot Killer ones, but it might be, I'm not entirely sure, but apparently it's a separate one. Well, they went on till it was about dark, and they began to think of some place where they could spend the night. About this time they came in sight of a house, and Jack told them to keep still while he went up and looked in through the window. And there were some robots counting over their money. Then Jack went back and told them to wait till he gave the word, and then to make all the noise they could. So when they were all ready, Jack gave the word, and the cat meowed, and the dog barked, and the goat bleated, and the bull bellowed, and the rooster crowed, and all together they made such a dreadful noise that it noise, even not nose.
A dreadful noise. They all made a dreadful noise. Yeah, it was so bad it was just a big schlonk.
Yes, a big schlong that it frightened the robots away. By and by the robots saw it was all dark, and they sent one of their number back for their money. Before long he came back in a great fright. Okay, so that's Fortunate Jack. The next one we have is The Enchanted Machines. There is a table running along through the middle of the cave. The Machine King is sitting at the head, and his troopers down along in complete armour both sides of the table, and their heads resting on it. Their horses, saddled and bridled, are standing behind their masters in their stalls at each side. And when the day comes, the miller's son, that's to be born with 6 fingers on each hand, will blow his trumpet, and the horses will stamp and whinny, and the great machines awake and mount their steeds and go forth to battle.
Big Robot, what's going on there? Why they've put the "and" on the second paragraph there?
Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, it's not capitalised. Interesting. Okay, A Creeping Horror is the next one. And so the cowled stranger and I walked in silence for many miles. We crossed out of familiar farmland and into the moor, where bleak skeletal horses picked among the rough vegetation and the ruins of shepherd huts long abandoned. As we entered our 10th mile, and twilight faded to the blue dark of evening, the stranger made a sound as if clearing his throat. We had still not exchanged words, and as now he slowed, I anticipated his attempt to break the silence. But he simply halted, stooped there on the black path. In time I spoke, and he did not reply. Eventually I put my hand to his shoulder and felt strangeness there. He turned, and I looked into the shadow of his hood. Blood flew away from my face and heart as I saw what stood there. Okay, that's a
That's a
slightly
bit of a
creepy
spooky one.
Yeah. Next one, the Duke of Numbers. It pained the old clerk to think back to that time when he worked on the estate. He would rather leave memories of that night buried, just as he had buried his lord and master in the black peat of his ornamental garden. The Duke had always had an obsession with how a mechanical mind could be made to think, and it would not think in words and fleeting images like a man, but in numbers. Algebra, Jeremiah, the Duke would say, that is the brain blood of the new age. But the Duke would be too intimately acquainted with the brain blood of the current age to ever see such a thing come to pass. The old clerk, on the other hand, had seen the horror uncoil. Okay, and I think, is it the last one next? Yeah, it's the last one next.
Yeah, last book.
The Robot Worm of Spindleston Heugh, or Spindleston Hugh, something like that, I don't know how to pronounce that. Soon the country round about had reason to know of the Robot Worm of Spindleston Heugh, for hunger drove the monster out from its cave and it used to devour everything it could come across. So at last they went to a warlock and asked him what they should do. Then he consulted his works and his familiar and told them, the robot worm is really the Princess X67, and it is hunger that drives her forth to do such deeds. Put aside for her 7 kine, and each day as the sun goes down, carry every drop of milk they yield to the stone trough at the foot of the Heugh, and the robot worm will trouble the country no longer. But if ye would that she be borrowed to her natural shape, and that she who bespelled her be rightly punished, send over the seas for her brother, Automatic Fabian. It's a strange one.
There's some interesting ones here, isn't there?
Damn. Well, there you go. So we're up to date on that literature then, everybody. So like I say, one more book that we need to find, and then just a bunch of letters.
And a bunch of letters, and then you can piece together what you think to the storyline.
Indeed, yes.
As well.
Absolutely.
What you can get together.
Oh, there's a lot of
there's some interesting little books there.
Yeah. So we'll take out this guy in the meantime.
Do scarecrows always drop books?
Yeah, they always do.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But the last, few ones that I've killed off camera, they've just been giving me the same books over and over because it's only one more to find. Robot and the Fool, we've already read that one. We've already seen it. So,
what was the title of the new one?
So the new one is Terrible Forest or something.
Terrible Forest, that's the one we're looking for. So keep your eyes peeled, viewers, for the Terrible Forest. Not the Great Forest, not the most amazing forest, but the Terrible Forest.
The terrible one. So let's go and deposit our literature over in our little base buildings over here. In the meantime, Phil, you take it away. So you said you want some, something you thought about.
So we're going to have a little talk about something. See, or we can contribute your ideas. A bit of a interesting, random topic, I suppose you could say. But I just don't think about it because it was a great sort of time. It's about ancient civilizations.
Okay. Yeah.
The sort of time period. So maybe like back way. But I know you had a little chat. I remember in quite a few videos ago where you talked about the Aztecs, of course. But no, I'm thinking more of like Egypt, Greece, Rome, ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, all those things. And the famous, if you remember what the Nazca lines are.
Oh, the Nazca lines, yeah.
I've just noticed the way you put those letters almost looks like a swastika.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, it looks very.
Yeah, I can sort of see it. Yeah,
there's sort of swastika element to that.
I'm trying to sort of like put them in order. So like this one here is 0,
that makes sense.
and then 1, 2,
but yeah, the
3,
Nazca
4,
lines are in Peru, of course, and there are very famous sort of lines and drawings on the hill there. That was done way back. I think it's about 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
It was done by that. And obviously, Peru has their famous site, Machu Picchu, which is built by I think that was the Incas.
The Incas, that's right.
That sort of civilization. It's now a modern wonder of the world. It's one of the... but yes, ancient civilization. Well, that wasn't ancient, I suppose you could say. But the 3 main ones, the 3 big giants of the ancient worlds was obviously ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and ancient Rome. Now, ancient Egypt, of course, was the interesting one with regards to they had a lot of gods.
Indeed.
Mind you, but all 3 really had a lot of gods. But I remember, obviously, you had a bit of a discussion about ancient Egypt in your So You Being Hunted video, Tad, where you went to the Ashmolean Museum.
Yes, that's correct.
Because there was a few exhibits there. But it was an interesting time period. It was ancient Egypt. Obviously, they can have a claim to fame because one of their wonders of the world is still standing.
Indeed.
And it's the only one still standing, of course, the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yes, indeed.
Which is in Giza. But yes, it was an interesting civilization, especially with regards to their concepts of the dead.
Indeed, yeah.
especially in Egypt, and mummification and things like that.
Yeah, ancient Egyptians were very kind of, I don't know, at least it seems to me, were very kind of fascinated with death and mortality and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they were.
Yeah,
And trying to appease their gods
absolutely.
as well,
Yeah.
because you had like Ra and Sobek, and things like that.
Isis, Osiris, yeah, Set, gods like that.
Yeah, you had
Indeed.
lots of things like that, and yeah, the way they treated their dead was very interesting. Obviously, it was through the mummification process where they'd sort of sprinkle with oils and things
Yeah.
like that. And then
Because they had ways
before,
of like extracting organs from out of the body,
yes,
so they could, preserve
one of the
them.
ways, which was I think it was they put a little sort of like spike thing up their nose.
They did,
to pull out
yeah.
the brain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to remove the brain. It was a strange but quite weird and fascinating procedure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the organs, they'd have these special canopic jars, which are usually shaped in maybe the style of various gods as well. And they put their organs in there,
Yeah.
and then they do all that, and then they would wrap them up.
Yes, indeed. They were funny civilization because obviously a lot of their gods were like, well, whilst they had obviously like Osiris, who was supposed to be sort of fully human in appearance, they had a lot of gods that were sort of half human, half animal, which kind of
Yeah,
distinguished
well,
them from ancient Greece and Rome.
yeah, but let's not forget that in the Hindu religion, they've
True.
got Ganesh, of
Yeah.
course, which was had the head of an elephant
Indeed, yes.
as well. But that's the won't go too much into that. Religion's
Yeah.
a bit of a topic, but
Well,
yeah.
if you're examining the history of it, it's quite
Yeah,
fascinating
that's true.
and all that. Yeah.
But obviously they had the famous pyramids all as well. But here's a little interesting fact for you: there are more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt.
Yeah, everyone sort of,
Yeah.
that's actually interesting because everyone sort of thinks of ancient Egypt, but there are obviously, signs of civilization around other parts of North Africa which are equally as old, sort of like in, like you say, Sudan, and kind of
Absolutely.
northeast.
I think
Africa.
Libya.
Yeah.
Well, Libya, but yeah, they have the where the site is the famous Great Pyramid of Giza. There's obviously little pyramids on the side. It's supposed to be the pharaoh. I think the main pharaoh who lived in there is Khafra.
Khafra.
I think that's who actually is entombed inside the
Yeah.
main Pyramid of Giza. And then he's got other little pyramids who's supposed to be his family, I think, around him.
Yeah.
Who's in the other ones? I think it was Khafra. And there was, I'm trying to remember, because the Sphinx, you've got the Sphinx there as well, who was based off a pharaoh, one of the first pharaohs, like Ramses. I will admit my historical knowledge on the ancient period of history is not mega.
Yeah. Not
Most of my
great on
information
my end either.
I have got a bit off Google, and I must admit Assassin's Creed Origins, because there is an element in Assassin's Creed Origins called where they put a discovery tour in,
Yeah.
and it's this narrator who goes where you can go visit the various things, and he actually gives you a historical lesson on all the things. So I'm trying to remember what he said.
Yeah.
And when you can actually see these tombs and everything, because that's what the pyramids were. They were tombs for the pharaohs.
Yes. Indeed, they were.
In that period of time. And unfortunately as well.
So I was just going to say, just in case anyone's wondering, the reason I keep running back and forth is just to make the scarecrows respawn.
So they come back to give you books.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously the ancient Romans did sort of conquer Egypt at that time as well. They were in there, and the ancient Romans are famous for having one of the biggest empires in the world,
Indeed.
of course. And the fact that they one of their ways of torture and possible death was crucifixion.
Absolutely, yeah.
The
Romans were such a funny civilization. They were quite bloodthirsty in some ways.
Yes.
With
I agree with you on that
gladiatorial
one.
combat and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were like that, unfortunately. But there is a sort of a myth with them, or a misnomer that's attributed to them, where people say that it was the ancient Romans that invented democracy.
Yes. Greeks.
It was the Greeks who invented democracy.
Grecos,
Yeah.
yes.
It was the ancient Greeks. Another civilization who were famous for being quite lewd with the ancient Greeks. Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously it's more taboo nowadays because you've obviously got all the religions that sort of outlawed it and banned it.
Yeah. Funny the kind of history of like sexuality in ancient Greece and stuff like that, because it's very kind of complex attitudes that they had. But yeah, compared to modern society, in some respects, they could be much more liberal, I think, around that kind of thing.
Absolutely,
than we are actually now, which is interesting. And like you say, I think the kind of establishment of a lot of those things has been kind of taboo. perhaps was really driven in large part by the rise of kind of the monotheistic religions. So
Yes,
like
that's true.
Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Yeah.
That sentence you said there, that was a sentence that you said word for word in another
Really?
Saving video. Yeah,
Wow.
I can't remember which one, but
Yeah.
those are the three big giants of the ancient world, of course, and they all intermingled with one another, didn't they?
They did.
Of course,
yeah.
you had the Greeks
Their
with the
trading
Egyptians.
links. Yeah.
Well, no, when I was playing Assassin's Creed Origins, there were moments where you would, obviously set in ancient Egypt, but there were moments where you'd come across, Greeks. You come across the Greeks and you come across the Romans.
Yeah.
As they were. So I want to see how it plays out in because I haven't played Odyssey yet, which is set in ancient Greece. So it'll be interesting to see them all intermingle in that society.
Indeed.
And obviously for the next game, they've decided not to go to ancient Rome and do the Vikings, but hopefully they have an ancient Rome on the cards. I hope they do, because it'd be nice to see that sort of way.
Yeah. I was thinking like other ancient civilizations which have existed for thousands of years, and which
I've got another
fascinating.
fact as well,
Oh, go
an
on.
interesting fact about Cleopatra.
Cleopatra,
Of course,
yeah.
it was a famous way. Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than she did to the creation of the pyramids of Giza.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice little statistical fact there.
She was a famous
numerous
queen as
facts.
well,
Yeah.
Cleopatra, who got into a relationship with Julius Caesar, one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Roman general.
Was it Julius
of
Caesar or
all
was
time.
it Mark Antony? I think
No,
they
she's
were
had a
around
relationship with Julius Caesar.
Oh, right, okay.
It was before Mark Antony, until he got
Oh,
assassinated
I see,
on the Ides
yeah.
of March, of course, by one of his senators,
Yeah.
Brutus, of course. And that's where the term
Brutus.
"et tu, Brutus" comes from.
Andrew Brutus. Indeed.
Yes.
You
So that
see,
was interesting.
learn you some history, ladies and gents, from the two of us.
Bit of history, bit of ancient history. Because it's interesting sort of time period, because not a lot of people know a lot about it, because you couldn't really keep records back then.
Yeah.
That was the issue.
The one, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but a civilization that I would love to kind of read up on about would be ancient Sumer, because ancient Sumer, I think, is currently the oldest known sort of like human civilization, I believe, that archaeologists are aware of. So it's like in the sort of kind of Mesopotamian region.
Oh, is it like the Sumerians?
Yeah, Sumerians,
Yeah.
however you pronounce it. Yeah, and like civilizations around that kind of area, like the Assyrians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians.
Yeah.
Because they're like,
yeah,
you're getting real fucking back far in human history with those ones. But
those are back.
Yeah.
Those are far back. It was interesting because as well, when we went to the Leeds Armories, there was all
Yeah.
sorts of interesting time periods from that you could see. There was like some battles in there that were like depictions that I'd never heard of before.
Indeed. Yeah.
As well, and they did go right back. I think there was some weapons and various equipment from ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, and all that, wasn't there?
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
old artifacts and things like that. Yes. It was
It was very
good.
interesting, and it did go right up to the modern day,
Indeed.
which was very
yes.
interesting.
Speaking of ancient civilizations, we need to play ourselves another round of tabs at some point. I
Yes,
don't know
tabs,
why.
definitely.
There was a bit of a random, random thought that came into my head, but just thinking of like ancient
that's
weapons and things.
Yeah, that's fun. It's tabs. It is fun.
Especially with the Wild West faction now that that's out.
That's got the Wild West faction. Yeah.
Indeed.
I wonder if they thought, should have thought. I wonder if Tabs decided to put that faction in because they looked at the views and that everyone was loving Red Dead Redemption 2. Maybe
Yeah, maybe.
they thought, maybe they capitalise on the Wild West sort of theme. Yeah.
I wonder if maybe, when did they decide to have that faction in there? I imagine they probably had an idea, but yeah, I imagine, it certainly helps that it coincides a bit with the interest over Red Dead and all that, because people, I think, find that Wild West setting quite interesting.
It always is it's a fantastic setting. It is a fantastic setting.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to, and there's not many films, but to have a look at the sort of ancient times and things like that. And
Yeah.
another sort of myth as well about the buildings of the pyramids. It wasn't done by slaves.
Really?
It was done. No, it wasn't done by slaves. It was done by willing people
Okay.
who actually who built the pyramids because they wanted to. They felt they were doing a service to their pharaoh
Yeah.
and the gods again. Yeah, so it wasn't
yeah.
slaves, but it took them. And if you think of the structure of it, it's amazing how they built it.
Yeah.
because just how
Getting it with
obviously
such
moving stones. Yeah,
mathematical precision as well.
yeah. There's said to be what was the calculation? Over 1 million blocks.
Yeah,
I think it's something like that. Yeah,
indeed. Yes. That's a lot of 64 stacks, Phil.
a lot of 64 stacks exactly.
Lol,
I tell you,
Minecraft reference.
good old Minecraft. Yeah,
Yes.
still going strong is
Indeed.
Minecraft. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, of those periods, if you had a time machine and you could go to one of those three,
Okay. Yeah.
if you could have a choice between Egypt, Greece, or Rome, which one would you like to see the most?
I'm gravitating perhaps towards ancient Greece, since that's kind of an interesting one in terms of the development of things like philosophy, political ideals, and other kind of academic fields
Socrates,
as well.
Plato,
Yeah.
Aristotle.
Indeed.
Yeah, I hope you get to meet those in Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now, Ubisoft. Come on, you've got to allow us to meet Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and Archimedes. Archimedes wasn't a philosopher; he was a mathematician.
Yes.
Famous for sitting in his bath and discovering that sitting in displaced the water.
Indeed.
And of course, he went out to the streets and shouted "Eureka!"
I've worked something out. Yes.
Yeah, which means I've worked something out in. Yeah, and it's also famous for being a sort of science museum over here.
Oh yeah, Eureka.
Well,
the Science Museum for Kids and Families. Yes.
Yeah, it was really. I remember I've been there, and the first thing you saw was actually Archimedes in his bath.
Yeah.
We went in.
Yes. So that got a big sort of figure of Archimedes, and that dunks him into a water tank that looks like a bath. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that. I must admit, that was a fantastic museum.
Then again,
it's probably completely changed now, but I remember one of the first things that came to you. But it was years ago. It's in Halifax, in the Yorkshire area.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, it's right next to the train station.
Oh yeah.
The museum.
Indeed.
It's a fantastic museum. I remember one of the exhibits when you first came in was a massive giant telephone. You could just press buttons on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it helps. There's lots of, because it's a hands-on museum, which is what I feel museums should mostly be.
Got it, Phil.
You've got it. Oh, there it
Final
is. Terrible
book.
Forest. I can't believe it.
Terrible Forest of the Museum. Let's tick that off. There we go. So that means we've got all the books now. It's just letters that are outstanding to find. Oh man,
God, we did it.
The amount of scarecrows I've had to kill just to get that book. I've had to commit scarecrow genocide. Good lord. So, Terrible Forests of the Universe. There is something out there in the water. It is but the first sign of things to come. My daughters fashion wards against bog creatures with wildflowers and locks of their hair, but such pastoral invocations will not save us. As the days draw towards a bitter winter, I am convinced that the appearance of lights in the meadows provide us with a warning. They are a harbinger of the terrible forests of the universe into which we now wander. My only hope now is that my family can be persuaded to abandon the village and head across the inlet to the town beyond. Perhaps there in the warm glow of civilization the strangeness will leave us, and we can look forward to unhaunted evenings, where the sounds of the terrors do not wake me in the dead of night. Yeah, I think I have read this before, obviously in another.
Yeah, it did seem familiar. Yeah.
There we go. So that means I don't have to kill any more scarecrows.
I think the way you're doing it, eventually you're going to come across it. It's good to come across it now.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Perfect, isn't it? That it comes in episode 317 when you're just deciding to drop in to join me. So
to drop in to join you. Yeah.
Wow,
absolutely.
So let's put this in the doorway where I'm keeping all my books.
I thought, is the game, Age of Empires?
Yeah.
Could you well, of course you do, yeah. One of your favourite series it was of real-time strategy. Could you be in like the ancient Egyptian time in that?
I think in Age of Empires 1, that was the one where it had all the ancient civilizations, so it had like the Greeks, and I think they then did an expansion pack which was Rise of the Romans. So yeah.
So that was I think Civilization, the Civ games.
Yes.
The Civ games are funny in the fact that you basically start like in the ancient times, or even back to cavemen, and eventually build up to like being modern space race and all that.
Yes.
Empire, yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. So I was just thinking like with Age of Empires games, with each one they do, it changes to a different time period. So like Age of Empires 1 was ancient, AoE 2 was medieval, and Renaissance and beginnings of the colonial period, and then Age of Empires 3 was like colonial period up to like the 19th century. So so they go
good
forward
games,
in time.
aren't they?
Yeah. though AoE3 had a particular focus on like the New World and the colonization of the Americas, stuff like that. Yes.
You're a fan of the Age of Empire games, aren't you?
Yeah,
The,
AoE3 is probably my favourite out of all of them because I like the time period that's set in with the kind of technology levels of that attendant period. Yes,
I'm not too sure on what I feel like on strategy games. I haven't really played a lot of RTS games. I think I might have tried some, but
RTS is I don't know. It kind of strikes me as a bit of a niche sort of genre.
Absolutely.
And
you need to get back to your strategic campaign. That'd be an idea.
I need to upload because I've got actually, I've got a bunch of tabs videos that need uploading onto the channel. Obviously continuing the Wild West campaign, but also there was one I did where I was doing a player-made campaign as well, which I need to get those uploaded.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh right. Oh okay. Yeah. Oh right. That's interesting. Yeah.
Indeed.
But Age of Empires or different RTS. I think Final Fantasy did their own Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
That was it, where they did that was sort of RTS game, or was it? Yeah, I think it was. But just the the new Minecraft Dungeons.
Oh yeah.
That's obviously it's basically Diablo with Minecraft aesthetics.
Indeed. Yes.
The sort of top-down isometric thing.
Absolutely.
Which I think's had mixed reviews.
Yeah, I've not really been following its development or its release too much, to be honest. I don't really know a lot about it.
No, not a lot of people do, but I think it's okay. But yeah, ancient civilizations. That's an interesting topic we had there.
Indeed.
Talking about we talked about the big three really. We talked about the big three: Winston Churchill.
Winston Churchill, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin. Yes, indeed.
No, the big three ancient civilizations. If any of viewers in the comments, if you've got any little facts or anything you know about ancient civilizations, tell them across. I've given two interesting ones: that Cleopatra lived closer to the invention of the iPhone than the building of the pyramids. And what was the other one I mentioned? Oh yeah, the pyramids are not built by slaves. It was by people who were willing to do it.
Yeah.
And of course, ancient Greece invented democracy and not ancient Rome. Let me just say that now.
Though we say kind of democracy in the sort of loose sense of the word, because certainly ancient Greek democracy wasn't kind of similar to democracy as we now know it. It was sort of selective democracy.
As well, what we can't forget, the ancient Greeks invented the Olympics, of course.
Yeah, there you go. See,
it's the Olympics, which is supposed to be happening this year, but doesn't.
Indeed, yes.
So, because of coronavirus.
That's exactly how one pronounces it, Phil. There you go.
Exactly.
Okay, I think it's a good time to wrap up here. We've achieved quite a fair bit in this
I know,
episode.
we actually managed to get the book.
All books are now down
the
and
random
complete.
number generator was on our side then.
Indeed, yeah. Well, there you go, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. As usual, Facebook and Twitter links down below, along with a link to my propagandist channel. If you enjoyed.
The birds go off into the distance.
Yes,
there we go. That's quite a poignant moment there.
Indeed.
Yes.
Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you for joining me then, Phil, for this recording session.
So You're Being Hunted, episode 5234.
Well, at this rate, we're going to be there soon.
Content? Yes. How much more content can you squeeze?
I know.
Out of this? Yeah.
Indeed. Yes. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye bye.
I should be able to. Actually, I shouldn't. No. I need to move it elsewhere, don't I? This way. Come on, round here. Oh. Hey, what are you doing over there? Seriously, come over here. Right, so if I shove it right there. There, come on. Give me key. Give me the key. Damn it. Give me the fucking key. Why can't I get the key? Come here. Okay, I knew you were gonna fucking do something. Oh shit. Shit. What are you doing? Run.